everyone. Welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. This is Nick Wright. It is Monday. How's the weekend, guys?
Good weekend.
Great weekend. Absolutely. Cris cooked some of, I can say this, my wife's on the West Coast, so she's not watching, some of the best fried chicken I've ever had in my life.
Nice.
Jenna, as you would know,
we got motivated
just
from the show.
Just like grasshoppers, as I mentioned on Friday. Grasshoppers taste like fried chicken. I've never had it.
Cris was a wonderful host.
We had a good time. We had the staff over, the male staff over. The females were doing something else. I typically do a couple different things.
Cris old school. Cris likes to do a ladies' night, a gentleman's night. No need to cross
take care of my staff.
Absolutely. It was very nice. It was good, but didn't get a good basketball game Saturday night, at least not a close one, but it was a great night. Absolutely.
All right. Perfect. Sounds good. Well, let's talk about a couple basketball games from over the weekend. Hey, you remember that one time that we were worried about Steph Curry's shooting?
Big worry.
That was adorable. We're not worried anymore. Warriors hosting the Rockets last night. Game 3 from Oracle, and Curry cooking, dropping a game-high 35. 5 3-pointers, went 7 for 7 in the third, 18 points. Warriors get the big win, 126-85. Yes, you heard me right. The 41-point win, the largest in franchise playoff history. Oh, and an NBA record 16 straight home playoff wins. Here is Steph Curry on finding his groove.
I put in so much work and been blessed with this talent to shoot the ball. For years, you got to rely on that and not try to get in your feelings or feel like, the world's crashing down on you because you're not making shots. Like, wake up, eat breakfast, lift weights, go out, have practice, get your shots up, and just have confidence in yourself that you can figure it out.
For 4 days, everybody's been talking about him, and what he did tonight didn't surprise any of us because that's just who he is. He's got unbelievable character and great talent, and it always rises when it needs to.
One of the things Steph said and mentioned quite often in that press conference was just how he's such a product of routine. And he just kept doing the exact same thing he always does because he knew eventually he was going to find the shot again, and eventually it was going to land, and it did. Cece, how important was it for Steph to break out in Game 3?
It's critical. And this is what makes this run that Golden State's on one of the special times that we've seen in the National Basketball Association. I mean, they shoot the ball better than any team. And Steph is the best shooter. So he is the ringleader, even though Kevin Durant is a better player and is harder to guard and presents more problems for the defense. Steph Curry with Durant and Clay and Draymond and the collection of players they have, it's one of the special teams that we see, but they're not special. They're only a good team if Steph is playing like he did in games 1 and 2. They are one of the greatest teams and definitely one of the greatest shooting teams and the greatest collection of shooters that we've seen. It's very important because there's no defense for all of them shooting the way that when they're shooting the ball the way they did. And you knew that he would come out of it. I'm glad that Steph stayed to his routine, like you mentioned, because that's what it's about. But it's also, I'm glad Steph wasn't like a lot of people making excuses for his knee.
Right.
Steph knew he was healthy, but when you miss 5 weeks of NBA at the end of the season, it's going to take you some time to get back to the intensity of the playoffs. He didn't make excuses. His teammates believed in him, and it took him, 2.5 games to come out of this. And you have to give Houston and their defense some of the credit for the sluggish play.
Listen, I want to give Steph Curry all the credit in the world because you're right, he didn't make excuses. He didn't even let those around him make excuses. So, like, they interviewed his trainer. And it's not like Steph went to the trainer. If they ask you about it, I'm going to say, no, the trainer said he's 100%. The coach said he's 100%.
Yeah, the trainer said he went through some of the most strenuous workouts that he's ever taken Steph through since they've been associated.
It was one of the reasons the injury storyline that the broadcast kept hammering was so frustrating. Everyone around him said it's not the issue, and if you watched the games, he was getting to the bucket.
He was moving, yes.
His shot just wasn't falling. It wasn't an elbow injury. It was a knee injury. But where I will give Steph credit is he was struggling terribly offensively through the first 2 games and the first half of this game from deep shooting. He had made 3 total three-pointers, I think, on 21 attempts in the first 3 games combined. The Rockets were hunting him down defensively. He didn't get disheartened. He kept competing, and he knew it would come. And when it came, the game was over. And Cece alluded to something we've been talking about all year, and I'm adamant on this. KD is the best player on this team. But Steph is their most important guy. Steph is the guy that makes the Warriors feel like the Warriors, that makes them feel different than any other great team we've seen because of the way his offense is infectious, and you saw it yesterday. Man, those folks in Oracle, they enjoy watching Kevin Durant go off. It is a religious experience for them watching Steph go off. The first three was the loudest the building had been all postseason. The second three trumped that. And the third three, it was deafening on television. Those people in Oakland love him, and he can feed that. That's why he said, "This is my bleeping house," screaming to the crowd. He's not wrong about that.
How hard is it as a professional athlete to come off two completely ineffective games, the first two games, and then to stay in your head and to be able to come out and not let it? Because sometimes you press because you really want to help your team and you want to get back into it and you see where you are. Just talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's real, Jenna. And everyone should look at that. They're normal, like they're normal human beings, but what people don't appropriate to not only with their gift, their talent, and their work ethic, they already have that mindset that they would be able to snap out of something like this because they've been to the gym too many times. He shot too many balls to realize that I know I can shoot the ball. He's the greatest shooter of all the women who have given birth. All right, there's no one on this earth without a mother.
Yeah.
There's no one that's ever shot the ball like Steph Curry. And you know that he's going to come out of it. So he knows that it's mental. But, man, after that first half, it lets you know how strong his mind is. Because that first half, he was the same as he was in the previous two games. And in the third quarter, seeing the ball go in on an and one with Chris Paul, shooting it with his left hand, that was the beginning to ignite the fire.
And the team, listen, except for the games where none of these three players played, KD, Steph, and Clay, one of them led them in scoring every time this year, right? So when Clay leads them in scoring, they win 70% of their games. That's on pace to win like 57 games. That's really good. When KD leads them in scoring, they win 70% of their games. It's about 57 win pace. When Steph leads them in scoring, they're 22-2. They win 92% of their games. When he's their best guy, nobody can touch them. It's why the Rockets' game plan, I thought, was so smart. It's why the Rockets are going to look back on this first half, and then we'll get more to the Houston angle later, and say, man, those were some missed opportunities. Because Steph was off. Our game plan was working. But he wasn't going to stay off. Even in the NBA Finals, where we say, oh, Steph struggled. Go back and look at his numbers. Go back and look at what Steph did over the final 3 games of their first championship. Look at his numbers in total during last year's NBA Finals. Even when we think he's struggling, except for the 2016 Finals, that really means he's been good, just not transcendent. Last night, the second half, he was transcendent.
Did the Rockets change their approach to Steph Curry and how they guarded him?
Did they or do they?
Did they?
Did they?
No, they didn't change their approach.
Did that have any effect on even the first half to the second half where he really broke out?
They didn't change their approach. The ball started going in for him. He had some open looks in the first half that he just missed. And Houston didn't play well. So there wasn't a panic for him because they had a nice lead at halftime, and he wasn't playing well. So, man, they stuck with it, came out, got him a look early, and the floodgates were open after that.
Right. That was I give Steph all the credit in the world, but see, you raise a good point. His teammates picked him up to such a level that Kevin
Durant.
Absolutely. Kevin Durant, Draymond, once again defensively, Clay outstanding on CP3 defensively, Steph didn't go on that run of made jump shots until after the Warriors had already at one point in the second half built a 21-point lead. So it's different if I'm struggling and we might fall down 2-1. I'm not saying there's enormous pressure on him, but it's a different feel when you can shoot the ball free-flowing, when your team has a healthy lead. His teammates helped him out there, and then he ended the game for him.
And I know the home court. I know you talked about it. People have talked about it through the years. But if you take this same collection of players, I don't care where you play, it's going to sound like that. All right, so we can say, oh, man, Oracle, they got a huge home court advantage. When you have the type of basketball they play and the level for which they can play, it wouldn't matter where they were playing. Like, they would have a huge advantage, no crowd or with the sold-out crowd that they had last night.
All right, 126-85 was your final. Warriors now take a 2-1 series lead in that one. We'll talk much more about this, especially from the Rockets angle coming up. But on the other side, did LeBron James and the Cavs prove they can make a run to the finals? Next on First Things First. Welcome back. first things first, LeBron in a second, but first, Steph Curry, he's back. Curry gets past Trevor Ariza, finishes with a nice little teardrop.
And that was the moment he ripped the mouthpiece out and said, "This is my bleeping
His
house."
mom did not like that, by
Oh,
the way.
they bleeped his mouth there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Steph got a little nasty little mouth and everything. He was in it, though. He was in his bag last night.
Absolutely. And I don't want the honest. I love that he did this. He should do this. It is his house. It ain't what.
Well, it's kind of.
Do you say that every time you walk home?
I mean, if I did that on my way home, sure.
Mark Curry finding James Harden with a nasty little step back three. There it is.
Crossover
and
behind the back.
There it is. Boom.
Dusty, I need the Warriors' all-time record in games Steph shimmies, because I'm guessing it's like 74-0. I bet they're undefeated in games Steph feels comfortable enough to break out the shimmy.
It's a good shim.
That was worth it last night.
From Saturday, LeBron James, nice pass from Kevin Love, finishes it with the reverse slam. Watch this one.
This is definitely one of the best in-game dunks that I've seen, especially in a championship level. Eastern Conference Final, Western Conference Final. It's amazing. Don't get in the dunk contest, LeBron. Just keep playing in the game.
I can't remember a better LeBron dunk in the half court that wasn't on somebody. Because usually if he has a wide open lane to the rim, he either does one-handed or just two-handed behind his back.
You take a lot more risk doing something like that.
Yep.
All right, more LeBron because LeBron, he drives, wraps a pass around two Celtics to Tristan Thompson for an easy dunk. Look at that.
I don't even know if that was his best pass to Tristan Thompson in the lane. The one at the top of the lane where he used the left hand,
Yeah, that was to Nance.
Oh,
that was
to Nance,
Yeah,
correct.
with the left hand, the one he fell down.
Absolutely right.
And see, these should be the conversation. The people who are trying to make LeBron the greatest basketball player ever, you need to talk about his passing, his rebounding, because those are the things that we've never seen for someone that size. Even Magic Johnson, a great passer, but not like LeBron. LeBron is in a different mode all by himself.
Oh, there it is. That's the one I'm talking about. The one to Thompson right there.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right. He had two to Nance. LeBron has 6 assists on three-pointers, 6 on alley-oops or dunks.
As you were, Jenna. Apologies.
No worries.
I thought we were still doing highlights. Didn't know we were
all
to the
day.
segment now.
3 hours of just
My
talking.
bad.
Sticking with the series in the East, that wasn't a series until Saturday night when the Cavs reintroduced themselves to the Celtics. Game 3 from Cleveland. The LeBrons finally got some help from the Cavs as they took out Boston 116-86. LeBron James pouring in a game-high 27, added 12 assists. As for his supporting cast, they played basketball. 5 other players scored in double figures. Here is the Kang on the team effort in a much-needed Game 3 win.
If we let her talk, she'll
Trying to put myself in position to help our team, and I think tonight, as a group, even when things broke down, we just covered for one another. We made them make extra passes, we made them make extra dribbles, and so we were flying around, and I just happened to be one of the guys on the floor that wanted to fly around as well.
We've been down before, and we just got to, keep fighting our way out of it. It's just one game at home. We got to win 2 at home and take the show back on the road and try and get one in Boston.
We can't play like we played tonight, no matter where we played. If we would have played in Boston like that, we would have gotten beat. So the valuable lesson is that, Cleveland outplayed us, and we've got a game on Monday, and we've got to be ready to play better.
First of all, J.R. Smith. I mean, that was coming off a win, and he was wide awake for the postgame. Did he not know that?
JR's pretty mellow. JR's a mellow guy.
And then there's whatever it is we just saw from J.R.
Absolutely.
Smith, who basically slept his way through that soundbite. All right, Nick, let
We
me
won one game. We need to win.
No, it's too much energy. You got to bring it down a little.
The eyes are perfect, though. The eyes are perfect.
We won one. Now we win 2.
That's math. Nick, how were the Cavs able to dominate the Celtics in Game 3?
They set the tone defensively, led by LeBron James. The fact of the matter is this. LeBron reminded everyone that says, LeBron doesn't try on defense anymore. LeBron's not a good defender. When LeBron knows he's going to have help on offense, and therefore he can use a lion's share of his energy on defense, he's still the scariest perimeter defender in the league, maybe outside of a healthy Kawhi Leonard. He's still that guy. But all this postseason, he's had to carry his team offensively. In this game, when he sees George Hill make more first-quarter shots than he had in the series combined for the 2 games, when he sees that guys are involved, he all of a sudden's flying around defensively. And when LeBron's flying around defensively, the rest of the Cavs tend to follow suit. And one of the fair criticisms of LeBron is when he's not flying around defensively, the other Cavs tend not to follow suit, or tend to follow suit in that regard as well. But he was able to chill out on the offensive end. Fewest shots he's taken in any playoff game. Walking up the court most of the time. They were so good defensively compared to how they were the first 2 games. See, that was the difference to me.
Yeah, well, to me, the difference was George Hill starting. Because him starting, being aggressive offensively, it led to the defense. It wasn't.
Yep.
The Cavs are not a defensive team. If you think you're going to the Cavs game to watch defense like that, you're there for the wrong thing. They're an offensive team, top 5 in the NBA, one of the worst in the NBA, 29th in defense. They do have spurts. They're still the oldest team left in the playoffs. So the 3-day rest, were they able to come back from that? Yes, some of the players talked about that. You could see the energy. Also, Boston, it's a real thing. What they do away from Boston, it's a real thing, all right? The lopsidedness for them winning and losing games, and that was evident also. The Cavs, George Hill, and the others getting started, and this thing with the Boston Celtics being on the road, because I believe that the Cavs can win 1 game in Boston. But the way Boston has played on the road, man, how much confidence do I have in them winning one of these games? Not a lot after what they showed on Saturday.
And here's the amazing thing about, because George Hill was excellent in the first quarter and then didn't do much else. It felt like JR played his best game of the series. But when you look at it, the Cavs starting backcourt was 7 of 19. Hill and JR. It was just that they for the first time all series played Brown and Rozier to a draw when they had been a 4th-round knockout in every game up to this point. You add to that the Cavs found a way. This is why Tristan Thompson's minutes are important, to neutralize Al Horford. Horford got 4 shots in the whole game. The Cavs take that every single night.
And extended the minutes Larry Nance Jr. He played over 20 minutes in the game.
That was another nice wrinkle, that Larry Nance Jr., after being out of the rotation until Game 2 of this series, got involved in Game 2, and then all of a sudden was a key part of Game 3, with Rodney Hood being a DNP coach's decision. So took his rotation spot, even though they're different positionally. Like, all of that, plus LeBron playing a near... I don't want to say perfect game, but a game without many. He didn't have any unforced errors, and he was conducting the offense. He was making sure guys got open, guys got the ball in positions to score, and he didn't have to shoot very much to do it. Like, all
this
of
was
that
a classic
is how you win by
LeBron
30
game.
points.
He comes out, defers to his teammates. All right? George Hill gets started early. So LeBron, he starts orchestrating. Okay, let's play some defense. Got the guys involved defensively. They got some turnovers. They played an up-tempo. This is the first time the Cavs have been able to play up-tempo. So there's a few things that we can see. The backcourt, JR and George Hill getting going, the Cavs defense at home, and their ability to play at a fast pace. Now, can they do that in Game 4 and 5? Those are the big questions, Jenna.
The offense for LeBron doesn't surprise anyone, even if he took a step back to let others get involved. But would you say he played arguably his best defensive game of the postseason so far? And if so, does that surprise either of you?
No, that's definitely his best defensive game. I mean, without a doubt, him being involved in the help protection, protecting the rim, stealing the ball, very, very active. But it's what he's capable of doing. Nick makes a good point. When you don't have the offensive support, when you feel like you need to get 40 points a game, then you got to rest somewhere on you got to rest somewhere on the basketball court.
And Game 2 was instructive for LeBron in this regard. First game all playoffs, he was great offensively, and they still lost. So, like, if people were critiquing LeBron's effort on defense, the reality was, up to Game 2 in the playoffs, all LeBron had to worry about was, if I'm great on offense, we'll win. They were undefeated in those games. He had a 40-point triple-double, and they lost. So he realized, I need to recalibrate this a little bit, and he still got the dozen assists. He obviously had 15 fewer points than in Game 2, but his defense, how many points did he save? And Jaylen Brown was erased from the game in the first half, and the game was over at the end of the first half. That was LeBron checking him for the majority of that first half.
As far as the Celtics go, I think after the game we saw Brad Stevens say or a day later, we went through there were so many things we were not effective on, so many things we weren't focused on. It seems like they just dropped out of the series for a game and then are now going through the checklist of all the things that they did wrong.
No, we see these emotional swings in these series. First, the 2 games, the team that has home court advantage, they win both of them, and people are like, oh, man, this series is over.
Yeah.
Man, you get on a plane, they leave that emotion at home.
Sure.
They go to the other arena, and that's what we were able to see this weekend with the Cavs series, with it swinging back in Cleveland's favor.
And, Jen, it is worth noting, the Cavs were playing for their season. The Celtics were not. The Cavs, if the Cavs had lost this game, it's over. 131 times teams have gone up 3-0 in an NBA series. They're 131-0. No team's ever come back from that. So the Cavs knew they had to play great.
LeBron James now 7-0 in games 3 and 4 after losing the first 2 games of a series against Eastern Conference opponents. So they know what they're doing there. Coming up, hey, did the Warriors close the door on the Rockets next season? That's next. First things first. Time for some stories to start your morning. Quarterback Tua Tagovailoa led Alabama to a comeback overtime win over Georgia in the national championship game last season. And according to him, it was a turning point. Said he would have transferred if he hadn't played in the title game. CC, what was your reaction to Tua's comments?
Oh, not surprised. I know Nick Saban. And when you have all those 5-star recruits and you're the top 1, 2, or 3 in recruiting every year, you have a lot of problems like this. Nick Saban, very seldom do these situations get out publicly, though. So I'm surprised the information gets out. I know it to be true. And this is what makes Nick Saban one of the greatest coaches to ever live. He can manage this without it being a distraction.
Well, and it adds to the legend of the decision he made at halftime. Pulls Jalen Hurts, who had, as far as a win-loss record, one of the greatest starts to a college career ever. Pulls him at halftime for this guy. They end up not only winning the championship on a throw he makes, but evidently that decision not only wins him a title, but keeps the player at the school to potentially be the best passer he's had in his time at Alabama.
He could be the best passer in Alabama history.
Yep.
He's a special thrower of the football.
Moving on to the pros now. Odell Beckham Jr. is searching for a new contract that could pay him upwards of $20 million a year. But that won't keep him off the field. Reports are that OBJ will join his teammates at the voluntary OTAs today. ABC, CC, how big a deal is this for OBJ and the Giants?
It's not a big deal because that's what he promised the team, that he would be there. When Pat Shermer gets the head coaching job, in the communication with him initially and my communication with Odell, he said he was going to be there. So I'm glad he's following up on it. It only helps him in his pursuit of a new contract.
It would be a big deal if he weren't there.
Right.
Absolutely.
It is expected because of what he said that he will be there. And I know this is a big yeah, but. This is almost, aside from that, Ms. Lincoln, how was the play? Aside from that video, he's done everything you would want him to do this offseason as far as starting the relationship with Shermer, showing up to everything. Like, he's done all the right things. That video is a big yeah, but this, to me, is almost equally as important that he's showing up. What
Jenna. Yeah, but.
You took my Mrs. Lincoln line away. If it wasn't the Lincoln line, it was definitely going to be the yeah, but. In other news, Julio Jones is doing the exact opposite of Odell Beckham Jr. Julio could reportedly skip Falcons OTAs as he looks to update his contract that will pay him $10.5 million this season. All right, CC, how big of a deal is this for Julio and the Falcons?
Well, from a full disclosure standpoint, Julio averaged around $14 million in the last deal that he did, all right? Mm-hmm. So even though his base salary is $10 million, the Falcons, they know that he's working out at Alabama. He's been known as a workout warrior, all right? He's one of the 1 or 2 best receivers in the league, him and Antonio. He sees what's going on. They're going to give him a new contract. He's going to do it the right way because the organization, they love Julio.
And this is one of the, I think, a bit of a ripple effect of giving Matt Ryan the new contract with 2 years left on his deal, making him the highest paid quarterback ever. Julio Jones, best football player on that team. I understand the quarterback's most important. Julio Jones, best football player, and he now wants his second new contract.
It's a ripple effect of Antonio Brown getting a new contract last year going over top of him.
For sure.
All right, moving on to basketball. Former #1 overall pick and all-star Karl Anthony Towns could be on the trading block this summer. According to reports, Towns and the Timberwolves are, quote, not in a good place internally. Nick, should the T-Wolves actually consider a trade?
Hell no. You're not in a good place internally with Karl Anthony Towns. Here's what you do. You call a meeting and you say, hey, Karl, who are you not in a good place with? Because they don't need to be here. You need us to find a way to move Andrew Wiggins, no problem. You don't like with Tibbs, we can set you guys up a meeting, but if that doesn't work out, we can move on. He is the franchise. You hope if you're bad enough to get the #1 overall pick, you're lucky enough to turn out with Karl Anthony Towns. You did. You cannot lose him. You cannot move on from him.
I'm worried about Tibbs. You know what Tibbs has done with great players? He's worn them out. Practice them too hard, shorten their career and overall ability to be effective. People in Minnesota might not like this, but I think this could be good for the Big Cat. Big Cat's a friend of mine. In Phoenix, new coach, new start. Yes, because what's going on in Minnesota? It's not working.
When you say in Phoenix, you're talking about Big Cat for the #1 overall pick.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
interesting.
Faux show, Nick. Faux show. Cavs and the Celtics, game 3 from Cleveland.
Who plays in Cleveland?
The Kangs. It's a little extended there. Boston got dominated Saturday, 116-86. The Celtics. They're now 1-5 on the road in the postseason. Here is Coach Brad Stevens on the team's road woes.
In my 11 years as a head coach, I probably haven't talked about road and home 5 times with our team. It's about how you play between the lines, and because I think that if you start talking about that, then you find excuses in both places. And we can't play like we played tonight, no matter where we played. If we would have played in Boston like that, we would have gotten beat. So the valuable lesson is that, you know, Cleveland outplayed us, and we've got a game on Monday, and we've got to be ready to play better.
Brad Stevens is right. Let's talk about the game and don't keep feeding the narrative, because if you keep feeding the narrative road woes, it becomes a thing, and then it turns into a bigger thing, which is why we're making it an entire topic on our show today. So consider this a thing. CC, why have the Celtics struggled on the road so far this postseason?
Well, this game, like a lot of other games, is they don't have the balance offensively. Defensively, they show up pretty much everywhere they go. Played well at home through the 82-game schedule, the best defensive team. So you can count on defense to go on the road. Where they struggle? Scoring the basketball. But they typically have 3 or 4 of their starters not be effective. In Cleveland, game number 3, Al Horford, Marcus Morris, and Jaylen Brown ineffective.
Yeah.
I mean, just totally different players. So we give the criticism to Cleveland and their reserves when they don't show up. We haven't said much about the Celtics, but they went through the same thing without a star player. You give up 61 points, the best defensive team in the NBA in the first half, how you're going to win. And their starters, they just haven't been consistent shooting the ball. Morris and Al Horford, they make 4 shots. That's part of your starting front court. You're going to struggle.
And it is, Brad Stevens can say, you know, I don't want to focus on it, and you can bring up the point that you don't want to make it a thing. It's a thing now. This is a team that outscores its opponent by 12 points a game in the playoffs at home and gets outscored by 12 points a game on the road. That's a 24-point swing. Their only road win was a theft of a game in Philadelphia, game 3, that Philly had won 3 separate times and gave it away ultimately in overtime. Like, they easily could be winless on the road this postseason. Go ahead, Jenna.
And to your point, this is not a team that struggled on the road all regular season.
No.
This team had the best road record in the Eastern Conference. Then the postseason starts, and what you said is absolutely right. They just can't figure out a way to win.
And they've been getting dominated on the road, which is noteworthy. Not even some close losses, but a lot of games where they have just been handily outplayed.
And that comes from not having a superstar. These role players, you can win a lot of games, but you need a superstar. You need a superstar to be able to stop a burst in a quarter. In the first quarter, they needed Kyrie to be able to get 2 or 3 buckets. Gordon Hayward potentially to get a stop on the wingman, get out in a fast break. When you don't have superstar players, it's hard to close out people, all right? It's hard to get calls because superstars do get a lot of calls. And when you're on the road and a team is starting to make a run, it's hard for you to be able to put out that fire when you don't have that guy. And the Celtics right now, that's what they are. They're a good team without 2 of their superstars.
Yep, it's a good point. All right, to the series out west now. Last night's game 3 between the Rockets and the Warriors. Houston got throttled by 41 points, 126-85, giving the Warriors their largest win in postseason franchise history. The Rockets had no answer for the 2-time MVP as Steph Curry went off. 35 points, 18 in the third quarter. James Harden and Chris Paul combined to shoot just 12 of 32 from the floor, and Houston now finds itself down 2-1 in this series. Here's Rockets head coach Mike D'Antoni on his team's effort.
We played soft, actually. I mean, you can't do that with these guys. These guys are good. And we still might not have won. We went forward. You got to play well. We didn't make shots early. We turned it over. I mean, just it was not a very good game. And we're going to have to play a lot better on Tuesday.
Second half, we came out too slow, too soft. Offensively, we didn't have any thrust, and they exploited it, And so, I think Curry had 20-something points in that second half. We did a pretty good job in that first half, but, just can't allow it to happen.
You guys laugh every time I ask this, but how is it the finals in your conference and you're playing basically for everything here, and you come out soft and you come out and admit that you just didn't play hard? How is that something you do?
I can't explain how the Rockets came out in the second half yesterday, because he's right. It is a good question. Here's what happened in the first half. They couldn't hit layups.
Yes.
Chris Paul was awful offensively. They were getting no contribution from role players. And they were still within reaching distance. They were still only down 11. I thought they played excellent defense in the first half. I think they were happy with how they played defensively in the first half. When you smoke a dozen layups and dunks, like, you're lucky to only be down 11. But to have that right there, and then to start off the second half and instantly give up a 10-0 run. Chris Paul is not paying attention on the first defensive possession. James Harden is one of the laziest passes imaginable on the second offensive possession. You let KD at a wide-open corner three. Now you're down 21, and the game is over. If you're down 20-plus to the Warriors in Oracle, the game is over. To not come out in that second half, CC, with a sense of urgency and execution, that's what cost him the game before Steph even lit fire.
Yeah, playing soft, what it really meant from Game 3 to Game 2, they weren't pushing the Warriors around. They weren't the antagonizer. They weren't chippy like they were before. In that first half, being down by 11 at halftime, they seem to have forgotten what got them the win in game number 2. So that's what they're talking about when they said they played soft. And there's no excuse for it, because the Warriors are the best team I've ever seen in the history of basketball of coming out in the third quarter. I mean, they make adjustments and they shoot the basketball like no team we've ever seen coming out in the third quarter. And the Rockets, they know that. They've played against them too many times. They know that first quarter initial jolt in Oracle is going to be there, and then that third quarter in Oracle. That's what they do. That's how they became the Golden State Warriors, is those two burst.
There were just so many missed opportunities for the Rockets early. The Rockets withstood the initial burst. It's 22-22 when Steph and Clay check out simultaneously with 3 minutes left in the first quarter. The Warriors go on a 9-0 run with Swaggy P and Sean Livingston in for Steph and Clay. That's almost unrecoverable. You still play them even in the second quarter, and then you come out on the third quarter totally lackadaisical. Listen, I know there's going to be all over the internet and television today compilations of James Harden's terrible defense, and his defense was awful yesterday. But Chris Paul has to be better, particularly offensively early in these games. Ariza, Tucker, Gordon, the guys we were talking about all after game 2, they combine to go 8 of 24. What our guy Steven Jackson say?
He said they won't. Ariza and Tucker, both of them will not do well in game number 3. They couldn't score 20 points if they locked them in the gym.
Right, combined. And so all that happens, and then you also let go of the rope defensively. You let the Warriors get 72 in the second half, get any shot they want when Steph gets cooking. Like, this is a tough one for Houston, because early in the game, you like their game plan. You forced Steve Kerr to take an early timeout. They had to change the way they were guarding the pick and roll. They were hunting Steph down. They missed those layups early, and then they just didn't show up for the second half.
The second half Rockets looked like a completely different team than the one we saw in game 2. Completely different.
Yeah.
Is it just the effort?
It was an effort thing. Golden State got hot. Yep. They can suck the life out of you. When they make the type of shots they can make, and when Steph goes on that type of role in that arena, you're going to have problems. But I'm not going to panic, because it was an 11-point game at halftime. I've seen Golden State do this to other teams. So, to me, Houston still has a chance in this series. This series is still not over. All they have to do is win one game, and they have home court it back. They get game number 4, which is, to me, that is not an insurmountable task for them. So I'm looking forward to game number 4.
I agree with you. I do not think the series is over. People after game 1 said it was going to be a sweep. Then the Rockets win game 2. Can the Rockets win? Now people are going to be talking this morning, is it going to be Golden State in 5? And maybe it will be Golden State in 5. We'll see. I thought the Rockets did some things that they liked in the first half. The other part of it is, and the defense was awful, this is the fewest points they've scored all year long in any game that matters. They've only scored twice under 86 points, and both those games were after they had locked up the number 1 seed. Like, This was the worst offensive game this team has played since Chris Paul's been there.
Because of their offense or because of the Warriors' defense?
I would say
because we weren't
their
heralding
offense.
the Warriors' defense.
They missed too many
after.
easy shots.
they missed so many layups at the rim.
Yes.
I guess layups are always at the rim. They missed so many layups.
I was just going to wonder where the other layups were. They missed a lot of layups.
Those 18-foot layups.
You know
those are the worst ones.
All right, Game 4 slated for Tuesday night.
Yep, every
Still
other night.
at Oracle. Okay, but I'd rather just say it to make it sound more dramatic. Hey, we've got a special guest coming in.
I'm looking forward to this.
Jordan's going to
join
join us.
Played with his dad.
Saints all-pro defensive end on the show.
Goodness gracious, he's
Back
grown up.
after this.
I think you owe me some money from when you was a kid. You stole it.
The New Orleans Saints were the NFC South champs
Eat that,
last year.
Cam.
That due in large part
That's
to
his
another
boy, Cam.
great season.
That's your boy,
All-pro
Matt Stafford.
defensive end Cam Jordan. See how this works? They talk, I
He
talk.
was
We all talk at the
unblockable.
same
He was
time.
unblockable in the playoff game against the Vikings. Then that miracle hit him.
Cam finished his 7th season with a career-high 13 sacks, striking fear into quarterbacks all over the globe, mainly in the NFL. The standout season earned him his 3rd Pro Bowl and, more importantly than the 3rd Pro Bowl, a trip to our show. Cam Jordan, how are you?
I'm good.
Thank you so much for being with us.
I appreciate you for
spending
having
some
me.
off-season time with us.
Of course.
We'll get to a little bit about that divisional loss to the Vikings in a bit, but I always wonder how long, if you don't win the Super Bowl, how long the way the season ends sits with you into the off-season before it goes away and you turn your focus onto the next season now.
Week 1.
Okay, of the next season.
Yeah.
So you still
I mean, I
remember
still talk about it. I mean, because you're going to talk about how we lost until week 1.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just when you have a lot of things going into you. You know, I think we went into the playoffs strong. When you talk about the way we sort of beat our first round opponent, sort of struck hot in that second half of the second game.
Yeah.
I think had we gotten past that last play, you know, we'd be talking different. But again, we're not here for, you know, what could have been, or we're here for what are.
Now, do you and other NFL players utilize that? Because you said the first game, which is a little probably surprising to people. How do you utilize that in the offseason? Is that utilized as motivation?
Exactly that. I mean, you go into every workout like, yo, this is not going to happen. Like, hey, you know, if I can get a little bit stronger, I can finish that, you know, finish the tackle and maybe make sure that throw is never made a little bit faster so I can get to the quarterback just a half second faster. That ball becomes not a completion because, I mean, it was high to begin with. And young Diggs went to go get it.
Yeah, he's talking about the Minnesota Miracle.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm glad to hear your perspective on it from where you're playing, because I know in the media right after the game, your teammate Marcus Williams is getting killed by everybody for what on film it looks like he made a mistake, like he misplayed it. You're talking about what you could have done in your spot to make it to where that pass never gets thrown.
Yeah, why would I talk about my rookie first? I mean, I would talk about myself. I mean, I was in year 7. I was having the best year of my career, and I think I was doing, you know, things, offensive tackles that they'll never talk to their moms about. You know,
he was unblockable in that game. So like if that play does not happen, the Saints go on to Philadelphia, and we're talking about how is Philadelphia going to be able to block my man?
Right.
I just follow up with that real quick. As one of the leaders, as maybe the leader of the defense, you mentioned why would you talk about your rookie? What do you do for him or with him afterwards or since then, if anything?
I talk to my guy immediately after, make sure that he's good, and make sure that this play doesn't affect, you know, his future, because he has a bright future. I mean, Marcus Williams also had that pick in the game that brought us back. You know, everything that, like, hey, happened one play, you know, we're a 60-minute game. You know? We're something that takes 4 quarters, and it took all 4 quarters for us to be beat.
Was it hard to get back up again and watch the rest of the NFL season play out? Like, did you sit and watch the Super Bowl? You did not watch.
I didn't.
Oh, that's interesting.
I'm a bitter person. I'm a very petty person when it comes to, like, you know, I catch reruns, like, you know, a little bit.
You caught reruns of the Super Bowl?
Yeah, because I'm not going to watch something I feel like we should have been in. We talk about everything, all the work we put in this past year. From there, I was just like, look, I'm done with it. I'll watch it later. I might have watched it after the Pro Bowl, honestly.
It's all right.
You know, and that was only because we had another game, you know, went to the Pro Bowl and like, all right, football flush out.
Yeah.
Let's sit back down and watch.
You talk about the bitterness, ending the season, this offseason, some excitement, get Drew Brees back signed
No doubt.
for a potential championship run. But you're going to be able to start in the season absent of a good friend of mine, Mark Ingram Jr. How will the team react to that, and how do you personally see this affecting the team for the first 4 weeks of the season?
I mean, me and MVI, we came in together. That's my brother. So, you know, the tribulations he's going through is only going to make him run that much harder, you know, when he comes back. But how we're going to adjust to it, I mean, we have Alvin Kamara. You know, we had Trey Edmonds come in the Bills game and take off for like, what, a 40-something yard touchdown. We've got some depth. I think we drafted a kid. So we talk about 4 games, or is that what it's come down to? It wasn't reduced yet? No.
Not yet.
It's not. Okay, no. Cool. Then you know, cool. 4 games. I feel like Sean can definitely put that together, a game plan for us where hopefully we won't miss him too much. But you're going to miss my guy. Yeah. I mean, the way he runs, the way he's able to run through tackles, run through his vision. I don't know what we're really going to do for 4 games. Luckily, that's not
your job.
Yeah.
Luckily, it's beyond my pay grade.
Right.
Your first year with the Saints, you guys win 13 games. You're a championship contender that season. Over the next 6 years, you guys win 7 games, 5 of those 6. You start this last year off 0-2. When you guys are sitting at 0-2 after 3 straight 7-win seasons, did you sense anything that could lead you to believe this team would go on to win, I think it was 11 of its next 13 games?
For sure. When you talk about how much turnover we had in that defense, everybody was like, oh, preseason. You can't judge a young defense off of preseason. You can't judge them off of the first 2 games they play when it's the Patriots and the Vikings.
Yes.
I mean, it would have been great had we started off with, like, the Browns and the Bills, but we didn't.
No offense to the Browns. Really.
Yeah. I mean, as much turnover they've had the last 2 years, it's going to be interesting to
Truth teller.
Yeah. So, but so when you talk about, you know, our first 2 games, we showed flashes enough to be like, hey, we're going to be something that could be special if we continue our path. Let's keep uptrending. So we get to, you know, game 3, a divisional opponent, finally something we know.
Right.
Then we're able to put together, you know, a great, solid game plan.
Beat down Carolina, beat them by 3 touchdowns.
Your words, not mine.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
when you talk about in-division opponents, I'm just like, you know, it's going to be a battle regardless.
Right.
So, you know, so we get that. So we go to London, and I feel like London was probably your confidence builder. When you go to London and you beat somebody who really doesn't want to be there, and you know you beat them down bad. You know, we beat them by 20 points, and they scored nothing. First time that happened in a London game. Then you go home with a little bit more confidence. Now your young guys feel that swag. Now your starters who haven't been starters before, like Alex Okafor, who came over to us, is feeling more confident. You know, Marcus Williams, Marshawn Lattimore, Ken Crawley coming back for his 2nd year, more confident. And we talk about how young that our defense was, or is, I guess, because a lot of those guys are going to be year 2 and 3. You feel a little bit more confident, so it sort of helps propel you to try and be great.
One of the things that didn't surprise us a little bit last year was how great Tom Brady ended up being. We were questioning how old he was coming into the league, and then we were all. I was questioning how old he was coming in. But we haven't seen a 40-year-old quarterback play at that level. We haven't seen a 40-year-old quarterback succeed at that level, and he got himself to the Super Bowl and took that team to the Super Bowl. Now you look at a guy like Drew Brees, who's 39 years old. How slim is that window there, or do you not look at a window at all when it comes to a guy like Drew Brees?
I mean, yeah, wouldn't you put him in the same category as you would Tom Brady? Would you not say that's sort of the blueprint of what you want a quarterback to evolve into?
Sure.
When you talk about, you know, how he's progressed in his career, he still threw for 40, I'd like to say 4,500 yards last year. I mean, who's doing that right now? And I'll wait. But especially when you have a ground game like we do, when you have Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram, you know, and they've combined went for an NFL high of
First 2 guys to both have, I think it was over 1,500 yards from scrimmage.
Right.
For those 2 guys, both of them.
And then you throw in a Mike Thomas who has another 1,000 yards. Look, I'm not worried about much. And then we added back Ben Watson to our team, so now we've got like a grizzled vet. You know, Ben Watson's going to add a little bit of gangster to the tight end room, and I say. Oh, you know, he's an OG. I got nothing but respect for him.
Let's talk about tight end first.
He's a good kind of gangster.
Yeah, good kind of gangster. Who's been around the league forever.
Right.
Let's talk about another tight end. Your dad played with this guy. So what's your earliest memory of one Cris Carter? When I don't know if you were, as a little kid, if you were able to go to the Vikings facility.
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Oh, for sure. You know, that, like I said, back when I was younger, I could have swore like Gatorades came in cans, and then like growing up, I was like, yo, where's the canned Gatorade? There's a different taste in the Gatorade. But
there was canned Gatorade in the Vikings.
When you're
locker
5 years old, that's all you really care about. It's like Gatorade, candy, probably like stealing somebody's T-shirt.
Yeah.
Like, this is mine because I want it, you know?
Right.
And your dad just started to have to deal with the repercussions
of it.
Yeah, one of the great legacies. I mean, his dad was a great teammate, great football player, Steve Jordan from Brown. One of my favorite teammates of all time. And one of the rare situations where you have your dad and you actually grow up to be able to fulfill his footsteps in the National Football. It's a credit not only to you, but to your family. Now with Drew Brees. Your dad didn't win a Super Bowl. I didn't win a Super Bowl. Trying to finish up getting Drew, even though he has one. He's the heartbeat of New Orleans. He's the heartbeat of that franchise. What is the kind of push from his teammates like yourself to be able to send him out on top?
These are the facts. I mean, when you talk about it, you know, he's 39. He's got at least, you know, if Tom Brady says he can play till 45, you know, my guy Aaron Rodgers says, you know, he can play into his 40s as well. There's no doubt in me the competitor in Drew can't do the same. I mean, and especially, again, it's not like he had a down year last year. He was absolutely, you know, killing it, as he does.
Right. All right, one more Saints question for you. CC tells us all the time, he's like, man, Sean Payton's a bad dude now.
Man, he is.
He talks, he's like, we showed when Sean and Adrian got into the match on the sideline, CC said, Sean Payton's not someone you want to mess with now. Tell us one great Sean Payton story you haven't shared before. Huh? Tell us one great Sean Payton story.
Luckily, Sean is a very, you know, offensive-minded coach. He only comes down to the defense if we're doing something completely wrong. So I haven't had to see that in a couple of years. 2.
Okay.
You know, he has come down with some fury, and he will go after anybody.
Players,
refs, coaches,
executives.
Refs. I was like, he might even come after an opposing fan if he wants to. Sean turns up.
Yeah.
You know.
Is there any coach in the NFL got more swag than Sean?
I don't think so. I mean, come on,
no,
like,
absolutely don't. They
luckily I haven't had to deal with any other coach other than Sean. You know, it's nothing but a pleasure to be there. And when you see him game day, make sure you know exactly what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? He makes sure that everybody's on their toes.
Yes. He's from Bill Parcells School of Coaching now.
No doubt. And he brings it up every other day. So
Yes.
All right, we got to take a break. Don't go anywhere. We'll have much more with Cam Jordan on the other side. Back after this. Here on First Things First with Saints All-Pro Cam Jordan. Let's take a look at the teams to beat in the NFC this season. That's fun. You can't look past the defending Super Bowl champs. The Eagles overcame injuries to take down the mighty, mighty Patriots in Super Bowl 52. All right, Cam, I know you didn't watch the Super Bowl until like 8 minutes ago. Do you view the Eagles as the team to beat in the NFC this season?
The defending champs,
So by nature of that?
Go ahead.
I think, you know, Sean McVay and what they're doing over at the Rams. I mean, I was hoping we was getting Ndamukong, and then Ndamukong goes to L.A., and then my eyes just got big. I said, that's a hell of an interior. You know, I think they shipped off Robert Quinn, so I don't really have to worry about the edge rush situation, but that interior is deadly. What they've done for the corners, we talk about bringing Marcus Peters in, we talk about Aqib Talib, eyes get big again. But I feel like, you know, between those two and then, of course, us, and you can't ever knock out, you know, Cam Newton and the Panthers.
Sure.
Just because Cam Newton can pretty much do it all. Can't knock that out. So it's gonna be interesting this year. I'm sort of biting my chops here.
It's interesting you bring up the Rams because I think a lot of people from the outside say, all right, you can bring in Ndamukong Suh and deal with that personality.
And Aqib Talib.
And then, but maybe you can bring him Aqib Talib. Maybe you can bring in Marcus Peters. They brought in all three. All three guys. As a player, if I know you'd be excited about the talent, but it doesn't seem like you had any concern about what those guys will all be like together in one locker room.
No, I mean, it's a win-now mentality for them. I mean, clearly, and Ndamukong's on 1 year. You talk about Aqib Talib and Marcus is heading to at least a contract year.
Marcus trying to get a contract.
So I mean, and then you bring in, you know, a guy like Brandon Cooks. Everything about him says they're trying to win now, but then again,
so the personalities don't matter at all.
They're going to be on
you
the same
think the
page.
winning is the only thing that's going to matter?
Winning thing is the only thing that matters.
Yeah, that's a football mentality. Most football players don't care because we know that we a little sketchy ourselves. And if we're going to win some battles, we need some sketchier guys with us. So I think that football players, you can hear it in his voice. Oh, and Dominican Sue, bring me whatever problem you might think that he might have. Talib, bring me any problem he might have. How different is it for you in going into your 7th year where you would have to say this is the most consistent anticipation for the Saints being involved as far as the conversation as a contender since you've been there?
You know, I feel like there's been different times where we were sort of talked about that way. My first year when we lost to the Niners and we were just looking like, dang.
That was a crazy playoff
They got to play
game,
the
man.
Jets. I was like, we beat the hell out the Jets that year.
Yep.
And, you know, it was like, you know, a couple years later, you know, we were deep in there and sort of lost to Seattle. You know, it was just in like, you know, you lose to a great defense like that. That's something we aspire to be. Let's get there. And then you go drive for a couple years and you get back to the playoffs this past year. So heading to year 8 now, you feel like we have to capitalize on our potential. We've seen what potential feels like. We've been, you know, been able to get past the first round of playoffs. You just feel like you're at the edge where you have to push yourself beyond. So that's what we're looking to do this year.
I know you're focused on what your team does during the season, but you also, I'm sure, are aware when a guy such as Carson Wentz goes down for the season with an injury. You guys know the home field advantage situation. How surprised were you, if at all, what they were able to do once Wentz went down?
You know, anybody who's like, oh, we've just got Nick Foles, you're forgetting Nick Foles was a Pro Bowl quarterback. He did thrive in an offense at one point in time. And whether he was, you know, it's not like they were just going and throwing in Blake Bortles.
Hold that.
It's not.
Hold that out, Blake. Hold that out.
It's not like It's not like they're just throwing in somebody who is unproven or, you know, hasn't had a All-Pro season or a Pro Bowl season. So when you talk about what they were able to do at helm.
Not so you thought they were in
surprising.
the best position any team could be in that loses their starting quarterback.
Or minus the Vikings, who went from Sam Bradford to Case Keenum, and we were like, Case, and then he shows up as he did.
Right. So you think the Vikings might be a more dangerous team? Because you seem like you had an opinion of Cases if he's a backup. Nick Foles was a former
Pro Bowler.
Pro Bowler.
Right.
So it seems like you have him in a higher regard. The Vikings, did they get better putting all that money in Kirk Cousins' hands?
That's going to be interesting. I mean, at this point in time, in 2 years, you know, last year we played Bradford, then we turn around and you play Case. It's not like you're able to make a game plan, just be like, hey, we know we can rely on this game plan from, you know, week 1 to whatever it was.
I'm going to speak for him.
Yeah.
He likes playing against the Vikings because his dad played against the Vikings, and the Vikings' offensive line can't block him. All right, so when you talk about the Vikings, all right, his eyes light up for a couple different reasons. He can rub it in his dad's face, and they, from a scheme and a talent standpoint, they have a hard time blocking him. Don't say anything.
Not a word, except when I ask a question.
Facts.
There you go. We can talk about all the top-tier quarterbacks in the NFC, but from a statistical standpoint. But give us like the top 3, you'd say, toughest guys to pass rush.
Wow. Top 3 is probably Cam Newton. I mean, even when you do get to him, he can probably almost outrun you. He can turn any which way he wants and gets out the pocket. And him scrambling, I mean, he makes big plays that way. He also will then run for 40 if you don't contain him after going sideline to sideline to sideline. Right, and then he's back the next play doing the same thing. So then you have, you know, probably I think I'm just sticking in conference here. Then you have Matt Ryan, who has one of the quickest releases in the game. I mean, before you can get there, and you can beat their tackles. Yeah. You can beat their guards. But by the time you get to Matt's already got the ball out. He has Julio, and now he's just picked up another Bama kid who's, you know, Julio-esque, right? Ridley, huh? Right. So now I'm just sitting there like, all right, so this makes it more annoying. But I think our defense, our secondary has improved so much, I'm not really worried about it. So then you talk about the 3rd hardest quarterback just in the league or in our
conference, in the NFC.
Yeah. Okay. I think I'm just going to stick with 2.
Those 2? Yeah. One guy you haven't mentioned at all is Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. I'm just curious.
Oh, snaps. He is healthy. Snaps.
Because he was out last year.
He was absent of.
It's okay.
And, Brett Hundley was at helm. Go Wolves, CHS product. And I think, he was going in the right way. But we talk about, Aaron Rodgers, that's my fault. How do I miss a Cal alum that's,
because he was out for the last half of the year.
And we talk about what he's able to do. Throws off the back foot. He almost makes these throws without looking. It's annoying how great he is if you're trying to pass rush him. But once you get a hold of him, It's not like it's not like he's going to fully shake you off like a Cam Newton would.
Yeah.
But that's part of his greatness too, is that he can make all the throws on any, like I said, on fadeaway.
Right.
That's annoying. As he's falling, he can sling it 45 yards accurately down the ball.
I'm very impressed of your knowledge of other NFL teams and the personnel and what they did as far as the draft. A team generating a lot of attention in the NFC always would be the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott going into his third year without the weapons some of these other guys have. How do you see Dak's situation with the Cowboys working out?
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about Dak Prescott's first year, he came in by storm. Second year, I guess they call it a little. I haven't had the pleasure of playing against him yet, so I can't talk too much on it. I can only talk from experience. So I'm not a outside looking in kind of guy. I need to be in the game. I need to be like, hey, this tackle I know I can beat. I hate the matchup of going against Dallas because then I have to go against Tyron Smith, who I've been going up against for a decade now. You know, when he was over at USC to now where he's at Dallas. That's a hell of a matchup for myself. So when you talk about bringing in Dak Prescott, I don't know. Exactly,
it's more about the pressure of being a young quarterback and taking over in the third year. Not my best question.
No doubt. Look,
Facts.
But when you talk about what he was able to do the first year, it takes a lot of pressure off him the second year. So, I'm just taking him as an NFL player now. Now he's just a baller.
You were the same draft class as Tyron Smith?
Yeah, it was a hell of a draft class.
That's what I was. All right, so
that's why I was 24th pick. There was too many strong ones.
All right, so let's talk about 2011 draft class, top of my head. Cam Newton, Von Miller, Julio Jones, I think A.J. Green. I know J.J. Watt, Tyron Smith.
Oh, this is a Hall of Famers.
I mean, there's some. Patrick Peterson. I forgot about him. Alden Smith, who when he was playing was outstanding. That draft class.
Marcel Darius, who had 10 sacks, had nose at one point in time.
I mean, the top 11, all of them had Pro Bowl caliber seasons, except for the quarterbacks drafted by Jacksonville and Tennessee. I think it was Christian Ponder
and the Vikings.
And that's the other one, the Vikings. Jake Locker and Gabbard are the other ones I'm thinking about. Does that draft class have? That's one of the greatest in NFL history.
No doubt.
There's no question about it. Do you guys have? Is there anyone in that draft class in particular you say personally?
Like, do you all get together for mimosas? I
don't mean that, but you guys
probably got to make a
are in the
reunion
same
tour.
Class.
Yeah.
I mean, don't forget there's and then the back half there was still Cam Hayward, Cam Jordan.
Yes.
There we go, Big Muhammad Wilkerson.
Yes.
One of the Pouncey brothers who was over.
I think Richard Sherman was in that class.
He just wasn't a
first round pick.
But he would definitely claim him. Justin Houston. There's a lot of talent from that, but we produce.
Cam,
it's a proud point.
Before we let you go, tell us a little bit what you've been doing this offseason.
This offseason, I just had my first camp.
Yeah.
I've always invested time in other camps. I've always invested time in the New Orleans community, just on my own. And was finally like, let me have something I can call my own. So we had the Cam Cubed, we had C Cubed, is what we. It was confidence, it was character, it was courage, and really just trying to install in the kids just that, that there's more than their parents that care, or more than their brother or sister that they look out for. That there's so much love in this world that can be given to our youth. That if it's not through me, it's through an avenue like me. So everything that we do, we try and do for not only the grace of God, but just putting that in for our future kids, So, my kids will one day grow up and just be like this. Hopefully I can be in Chris's position and be like, I played with your dad. I remember when you were running in my locker room and you stole my helmet, or you took my jersey from the Pro Bowl, and you said you and your dad were going to exchange, but you didn't come back.
You drink Gatorade out of a bottle. What?
Right.
It was plastic. Anyway, Cam Jordan, you are so lovely. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. It's been great getting to know you.
Come back, man.
Always.
Definitely come back.
We
would love to have you here.
Nothing like the Big Apple, right?
Good luck with the
Except
Saints.
the snow's here.
This year.
The snow.
All the time. Let's take a break. More
You
First
know a
Things
little
Sports
bit about the
on the other
Cowboys
side.
in television.